Hello, and welcome to another episode of Super English Talks. I am so happy that you are here with me today. This podcast is not only about learning English. It is also about learning how to live better, how to stay calm, and how to build a more meaningful life. When we learn English, we are not just learning new words. We are also learning new ideas, new ways of thinking, and new ways of looking at the world. The language we use shapes the way we see things. And when we grow our English, we also grow our mind and the way we handle our daily struggles. Today we are going to talk about something very important. It is a topic that touches almost every single person, no matter where you come from, what language you speak, or what culture you belong to. That topic is frustration, stress, and depression. We are going to explore what each one really means, how they are different, and how we can take back control of our lives when these feelings become too heavy. Now, why is this topic so important? Because we live in a very fast world. Think about it. Everything around us is moving quickly. Technology changes every day. Work deadlines feel shorter and shorter. People expect fast replies to their messages. We're asked to do more in less time. And because of this, many of us feel like there is no pause button in life. In this busy and noisy world, our emotions can start to feel heavy. Sometimes we get frustrated over small things. For example, when our internet connection is slow or when our phone freezes right when we need it most. Other times we feel stressed because responsibilities at school, at work, or at home start to pile up. Maybe we have an exam, a work project, or family problems all at the same time. And sometimes, if these feelings stay with us for too long, they can sink even deeper into something heavier, something darker, depression. Depression can feel like a cloud that follows you everywhere and does not want to leave. Here's the problem. Many people confuse these three emotions. They think frustration and stress are the same thing, or they call depression just sadness. But they're not the same. And if we don't understand the difference, it becomes very hard to take care of ourselves. It's a little like fixing a broken car without knowing what part is broken. If you don't know the real problem, you might spend hours changing the tires when in fact the engine is the issue. In the same way, if we mix up frustration, stress, and depression, we may try the wrong solutions. We may not give ourselves the care that we truly need. That's why, in this episode, I want to guide you step by step. We will look at what each emotion means in real daily life. I will not just give you dictionary definitions. Instead, I will use simple examples, things that you can imagine, things that you may have already experienced. And most importantly, I want you to reflect on your own life as you listen. This podcast is not just about me talking. It is about you thinking, connecting, and maybe even recognizing yourself in the stories I share. So let me ask you, have you ever felt so frustrated that you wanted to give up? Have you ever felt stress pressing on your chest like a heavy weight? Or have you ever noticed that your sadness is not just sadness, but something deeper, something harder to escape? If you have, then you are not alone. These are the kinds of questions we will explore together. Now, I want to make something very clear. My goal in this episode is not to make you feel heavy or sad. My goal is the opposite. I want this episode to be supportive, encouraging, and even a little freeing. Because when you understand your emotions, you are not a prisoner of them. You are in control of them. And when you take control, life feels lighter, easier, and much more hopeful. So, before we begin, let's do something simple together. Take a deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. And now let it out slowly. Relax your shoulders. Allow yourself to be here in this moment. All right, now let's start. What is frustration? Simply put, Frustration is that uncomfortable feeling you get when something is standing in your way, when something is stopping you from reaching what you want. Imagine this picture. You are trying to open a door. You have the key in your hand. You believe it should work. But when you try to put it in, the key doesn't fit. You twist, you pull, you push, you shake the handle again and again. But still, nothing happens. What do you feel in that moment? You don't feel exactly angry, and you don't feel exactly sad. Instead, you feel stuck, restless, and annoyed. That growing sense of irritation and helplessness, that is frustration. Frustration is like your emotions sending you a signal. I want this to work, but it's not working. I want to move forward, but something is blocking me. In daily life, frustration shows up in many different situations. Some are small, some are bigger. One very common example is traffic. Picture this. You are late for work, or maybe you are on your way to meet a friend you haven't seen in a long time. You feel excited, but the road in front of you is completely full of cars. They're moving slower than a snail. You check your watch again and again. You tap your fingers on the steering wheel. You sigh loudly. Nothing changes outside, but inside you feel heat rising. That uncomfortable pressure building inside you, that's frustration. Another everyday example is technology. Let's be honest, we've all been there. You're about to send an important email. Or maybe you're filling out an online form that took you half an hour to complete. And suddenly, the internet stops working. The page freezes. You refresh. You restart your computer. Still nothing. Or maybe you're in the middle of a phone call and the battery dies without warning. These problems might be small in the big picture of life, but they make us feel disproportionately upset. Why? Because they interrupt our flow, they stop us from doing something we were ready to do. That sudden stop creates frustration. But frustration doesn't only come from little things. It also shows up in more personal and meaningful situations. Imagine this. You study hard for a test. You spend hours preparing. But when you get your grade back, it's much lower than you expected. Or maybe you've been practicing English conversation for months. You feel ready. But then you meet a native speaker and suddenly the words don't come out. You freeze. You forget everything you practiced. That gap, the distance between what you wanted and what actually happened, that's where frustration grows. I remember a personal story. Once, I was trying to cook a complicated dish from a recipe. I followed all the steps carefully. I spent so much time preparing the ingredients. But in the end, the food didn't taste right. The texture was strange. It was bland. I felt like throwing the whole dish in the trash. That was frustration in action. I had invested energy. I expected a delicious result. But reality didn't match my expectation. Looking back, I can laugh at it now, but at that moment, it felt like a big deal. That's how frustration works. It often makes small problems feel much bigger than they really are. Now here's something interesting about frustration. It can push us in two very different directions. On one hand, frustration can actually motivate us. It can give us the energy to try harder, to find another solution, or to change our approach. For example, a student who feels frustrated with low grades might finally decide to study in a new way, ask for help, or practice more consistently. But on the other hand, frustration can also discourage us. If the same student feels frustrated again and again, they might start to believe that no matter what they do, they cannot succeed. And when frustration turns into hopelessness, it becomes dangerous. That's when frustration can slowly grow into stress, and if it continues for too long, it may even lead to depression. This is why it's so important to recognize frustration early. It's a completely natural emotion. We all feel it. But the way we respond to it makes all the difference. Sometimes, just naming it can help. If you say to yourself, I am frustrated right now, you create a little bit of distance between you and the emotion. That distance is like pressing pause before reacting. And in that pause, you can make a choice. Do I want to keep fighting this situation, or do I need to step back, breathe, and take a break? Finally, it's important to understand that frustration is strongly connected to expectations. The higher your expectations, the bigger your frustration when reality does not match them. If you expect the bus to arrive exactly on time, you will feel frustrated when it is 5 minutes late. But if you already expect some delay, you will probably remain calm. This doesn't mean we should stop expecting good things. But it does mean we need to check our expectations and remind ourselves that sometimes life does not go as planned, and that's okay. So, frustration is not your enemy. It's a signal, a message from your mind and body saying, something is not working here. Pay attention. What you do with that message is up to you. The higher our expectations, the easier it is to feel frustrated. Think about perfectionists, the people who want everything to be flawless. For them, even the smallest mistake feels like a disaster. If the picture is not perfectly straight, if the word is not perfectly spelled, if the plan does not go exactly as imagined, they immediately feel disappointed. That mindset almost guarantees frustration because life, as we all know, is never perfect. On the other hand, if you can adjust your expectations, you can lower the power of frustration. This doesn't mean you stop caring or stop trying your best. It simply means you give yourself some room to be human. It means you allow yourself to make mistakes, to be flexible, and to accept that sometimes things will not go exactly as planned. And that's okay. So let me ask you, when was the last time you felt frustrated? Did you explode with anger? Did you give up completely? Or did you take a deep breath, calm yourself down, and then try again? Think about that moment for a second. Because the way you handle small frustrations says a lot about how you might handle bigger challenges in life. And remember this, frustration itself is not the enemy. It is just a message. It is your mind telling you, this matters to me. This is something I care about. But something is in the way. Once you understand that message, you can decide how to respond. Do you push harder? Do you find another solution? Or do you step back and wait for a better time? The choice is yours. Now let's move to the next emotion, stress. Stress is a word we hear almost every single day. People often say, I'm so stressed, or this situation is stressing me out. But many times, the word is used in the wrong way. Stress is not the same as frustration, even though the two can feel similar. Here's the difference. Frustration usually comes from one specific situation. For example, your internet is slow, the bus doesn't come on time, or your phone battery dies when you need it most. Stress, on the other hand, is about pressure. It's not just one event. It's the feeling that too many things are happening at once, and you don't know how to handle them all. Stress feels like being pulled in many different directions at the same time. It feels like carrying a heavy backpack that just keeps getting heavier with every new responsibility. At first, you can carry it. But as more and more weight is added, you begin to feel tired, overwhelmed, and exhausted. One important thing to understand about stress is that it can be short-term or long-term. Short-term stress happens when you face a temporary challenge or deadline. Imagine you have an important exam tomorrow. You stay up late, reviewing your notes again and again. Your heart beats faster. Your mind is focused because you want to do well. That is short-term stress. And believe it or not, short-term stress can sometimes be helpful. It sharpens your mind. It gives you the energy to prepare. Athletes often feel this before a big game. Speakers feel it before giving a presentation. Students feel it before a test. In small doses, stress can be like fuel that pushes you to perform. But here's the problem. When stress doesn't go away, when it stays with you for too long, it turns into long-term stress. And this is where the real danger begins. Long-term stress is like carrying that heavy backpack every single day without ever putting it down. It doesn't just make you feel tired, it begins to affect your body and your mind. You may feel constant headaches. You may have trouble sleeping. You may feel irritated with people around you for no reason. You may even lose interest in things you once enjoyed. That is why it is so important to notice stress early. A little stress can motivate you, but too much stress, carried for too long, can drain your energy and slowly damage your health. What is depression? Depression is often misunderstood. Many people think it is just sadness, but depression is much deeper than that. Sadness is a normal emotion. It comes and goes. You might feel sad when you fail an exam, when you argue with a friend, or when you watch a sad movie. But usually, after some time, the sadness fades. You recover. You laugh again. You move on. Depression is different. Depression is not just one bad day or even one bad week. Depression is when the sadness stays for a long time, weeks, months, or even years, and it begins to affect every part of your life. It's like carrying a heavy shadow that follows you everywhere. When someone is depressed, they often lose interest in the things that once brought them joy. For example, maybe you loved reading books, playing music, or spending time with friends. But with depression, even those activities start to feel meaningless. Food doesn't taste the same. Music doesn't sound the same. Life feels flat and empty. Depression also shows up in the body. Some people sleep too much. Others cannot sleep at all. Some people feel extremely tired all the time, while others feel restless and unable to relax. You might notice changes in your appetite, eating far less than usual, or eating much more as a way to numb the pain. The hardest part about depression is that it often convinces you of something untrue. It tells you that nothing will ever get better. It whispers that your efforts don't matter, that people don't care, or that you don't have the energy to keep going. And because of these thoughts, people with depression may start to withdraw from friends, avoid responsibilities, or lose hope for the future. Let's make it clearer with some examples. Imagine a student who once loved learning, but now finds it impossible to concentrate. Even opening a book feels exhausting. Imagine a parent who once played happily with their children, but now feels too empty to join in. Imagine a worker who once took pride in their job, but now struggles to get out of bed in the morning. On the outside, it may look like laziness or disinterest or even weakness. But depression is none of those things. Depression is an illness, just like the flu or a broken bone. It affects the brain and body together, and it needs care and support. Another important thing to understand is that depression can sometimes grow out of frustration or stress. Think about it. If you feel frustrated again and again, if you live with stress for too long without relief, eventually your mind and body may start to shut down. It's like a machine that has been running nonstop without rest. It will eventually break. Depression can be the result of that long-term overload. But here is the most important message. Depression is not the end. It is treatable. People recover from it every day. Sometimes recovery comes from professional help like therapy or medication. Sometimes it comes from supportive friends and family, healthy routines, and self-care practices. Most often, it is a combination of these things. The first and most powerful step is simply recognizing it. To pause and say to yourself, this is not just tiredness. This is not just sadness. I may be experiencing depression. That awareness opens the door to healing. If you ever notice yourself or someone you care about feeling hopeless, empty, or unable to find joy for a long time, take it seriously. Talk to someone you trust. Reach out for help. You don't have to fight depression alone. Remember this: frustration is a signal. Stress is a pressure. Depression is a weight that can trap you if you ignore it. But in all three cases, awareness is the first step. When you can name what you feel, you can take back your power. Sadness usually has a cause and a timeline. Depression, on the other hand, often has no single reason. Sometimes it comes after a loss or a difficult period, but other times it appears without warning. A person may have a good job, supportive friends, and no obvious problems, and still feel deeply depressed. That's because depression is not just about external events. It is also connected to brain chemistry, hormones, and even genetics. Another difference is duration. Sadness fades when life circumstances improve. Depression lingers. It can last for weeks, months, or longer, and it doesn't simply disappear when something good happens. You might celebrate a success or spend time with loved ones, but the heavy fog remains. It is also important to know that depression can look different for different people. Some may cry often and openly show their emotions. Others may seem calm, even cheerful, while silently battling dark thoughts inside. Some people sleep too much, while others can't sleep at all. Some lose weight because they have no appetite, while others gain weight because they eat for comfort. This variety can make depression harder to recognize, both for the person experiencing it and for those around them. The key point is this: sadness is a normal human emotion, while depression is a medical condition. Understanding this difference is crucial because depression often requires more than just waiting it out. It may require therapy, support from loved ones, lifestyle changes, or sometimes medication. Depression is not the same as sadness. Sadness usually comes when something happens in your life, like losing a job, failing a test, or arguing with someone you care about. After some time, the sadness usually becomes lighter. Depression, on the other hand, often stays even when nothing specific has happened. It lingers, it continues, and it affects almost every part of your life. If you notice that you have been feeling hopeless, empty, or without energy for more than 2 weeks, that is an important sign to pay attention to. And here is something you should always remember. If you think you might be experiencing depression, you do not need to go through it alone. Talking to someone you trust can help, whether it is a friend, a family member, or even a professional. Sometimes, simply sharing your feelings with another person can lift a little bit of the heavy weight you are carrying. For many people, speaking with a counselor or doctor can also give them the right tools and support to feel better. Asking for help is not weakness. In fact, it shows strength and courage. It means you are taking care of your health, just like you would if you had a broken bone or the flu. Depression is real, but it is also treatable. People do recover, and life can become brighter again. If you are not experiencing depression yourself, but know someone who might be, the best thing you can do is listen without judging them. Show kindness, show understanding, and remind them that they are not alone. Even small acts of care can mean a lot for someone who is struggling. Now, let's connect this to the bigger picture. At first, frustration, stress, and depression might seem like 3 different experiences. And in a way, they are. But if you look more closely, you will see that they are linked together, almost like steps on a slippery slope. If you are not careful, you can slide down from one step to the next without even realizing it. It often begins with frustration. Frustration happens when something small gets in your way. Maybe the internet suddenly stops working while you are in the middle of an important online class. Maybe you spend hours working on a project, but nobody notices your effort. Or maybe you practice English speaking, but still cannot find the right words during a conversation. These moments are frustrating, and they are completely normal. Everyone feels frustration sometimes. But if frustration happens again and again, and you do not deal with it in a healthy way, it starts to pile up. That is when frustration can grow into stress. For example, imagine a student who fails one test. At first, they feel frustrated. I studied so hard, but I didn't get the result I wanted. That reaction is normal. But then more thoughts start to appear. What if I fail the next test too? What if I never pass this subject? What will my parents say? What will happen to my future? Suddenly, the problem is no longer about one test. It grows into constant stress about school, about family, and about the future. Instead of facing just one small obstacle, the student now feels surrounded by many heavy pressures. This is why the slope is slippery. If the student does not find a way to manage that stress by asking for help, changing how they study, or giving themselves time to rest, the stress can slowly slide into depression. Day by day, the student may lose interest in studying at all. They may start thinking, why should I even try? Nothing works anyway. At this point, the stress has taken away their motivation, their hope, and even their joy. That is how frustration, stress, and depression connect to each other. They are not completely separate. They are like steps in a chain. But the good news is, just as you can slide down the slope, you can also stop yourself from going further if you pay attention early. Learning to notice frustration, to manage stress, and to seek help before things get worse can make all the difference. When the energy disappears, the negative thoughts begin to take control. What started as frustration over one small thing, like failing a test, can grow into a much deeper feeling of hopelessness. This pattern shows up in many parts of life. Take work as an example. An employee might first feel frustrated because their boss ignores their ideas. At first, it's just annoyance. But as time goes on, that frustration builds into stress about going to work every single day, about feeling unappreciated, about not being heard. If this continues for months or even years, it can turn into depression. The employee might lose motivation, stop believing in their own value, and even begin to feel like life itself has no real purpose. The same thing can happen in relationships. A person may feel frustrated because their partner doesn't listen. One time might not seem like a big deal, but when it happens again and again, that frustration grows into stress about the relationship itself. And if nothing changes, it can slowly turn into depression, where the person feels unloved, unwanted, or invisible. The key point is this: these emotions are not separate from each other. They are connected like links in a chain. Frustration is like the first small warning signal. Stress is the louder alarm that comes next. And depression is what happens when those alarms are ignored for too long. This doesn't mean that every frustration will always end in depression. Of course not. Most of the time, we face small frustrations and then move on. But when we push them down, deny them, or pretend they don't matter, we give them space to grow stronger until they become something much harder to deal with. This is why awareness is so important. Think about your own life. Do you sometimes ignore little frustrations until they pile up into bigger problems? Do you tell yourself, I'll deal with it later, only to realize that the pressure has doubled or even tripled by the time you return to it? Almost all of us have done this at some point. It's human nature. But when we clearly see the connection, we start to realize something important. Handling frustration early is not just about fixing small problems. It's about protecting ourselves from much bigger struggles later on. Another way to picture this is by imagining a dripping tap. One drop of water is nothing to worry about. It seems too small to matter. But if the tap keeps dripping and no one fixes it, eventually the sink will overflow. And if the overflow continues, it can damage the whole kitchen. Frustration is that first small drop. Stress is the overflow. Depression is the damage when nothing has been done. The earlier you act, the easier it is to prevent serious consequences. So the question is, how do you respond when frustration first shows up? Do you notice it? Do you pause, breathe, and give yourself time to think, maybe adjust your expectations? Or do you push it aside, tell yourself it's nothing, and let it grow into something heavier? Being honest with yourself about this is powerful. The slope is only slippery if you ignore the signs. If you catch frustration at the very beginning, you can stop the slide before it even starts. This is where mindset and perspective come in. Taking control. When we talk about frustration, stress, and depression, it can sound heavy. These emotions are real, and they can feel strong, sometimes even stronger than us. But here's the encouraging truth: we are not powerless. We can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we respond. And that choice makes all the difference. This is where mindset and perspective come in. If frustration is the spark and stress is the fire, then mindset is the tool we use to keep the flames under control before they spread too far. With the right perspective, we can stop small problems from turning into bigger struggles. One of the most powerful mindset shifts we can make is moving from perfectionism to progress. Many people fall into the trap of perfectionism without even realizing it. Perfectionism is the belief that everything has to be flawless, no mistakes, no failures, everything exactly right all the time. At first, it sounds like a good standard. But in real life, it only leads to endless frustration. Why? Because life is never perfect. Things go wrong. Delays happen. Mistakes are part of every journey. When perfectionists face these normal bumps in the road, they don't just see them as small setbacks. They see them as proof that they are not good enough. And this way of thinking quickly turns into stress, self-doubt, and eventually hopelessness. But progress is different. Progress is not about being perfect today. Progress is about moving forward, even if the steps are small. It's asking yourself, am I a little better than I was yesterday? Instead of am I perfect today? That shift changes everything. Take learning English as an example. If your goal is to speak perfectly without a single mistake, you'll feel frustrated very quickly. You might even stop speaking altogether because you're afraid of getting something wrong. But if your goal is progress, improving step by step, then every conversation becomes a victory, even the ones full of mistakes. In fact, mistakes stop feeling like failures. They become evidence that you are trying, and trying is the only way to grow. Another important piece of taking control is consistency. Many times, we expect big results in a very short time. We want to go to the gym once and see big muscles. We want to practice English for 1 week and suddenly sound fluent. But when those results don't appear right away, frustration grows. The truth is, real change doesn't happen from one big effort. It happens from small actions repeated again and again. Think of a drop of water falling on a stone. One drop does nothing. But drop after drop, day after day, the stone slowly changes shape. That is the power of consistency. The same is true in life. If you read just one page of an English book every day, if you write 2 or 3 sentences in a journal each night, if you practice speaking for 10 minutes regularly, you may not notice results immediately. But after weeks and months, you'll be amazed at how far you've come. Finally, taking control also means setting realistic goals. Unrealistic goals are like setting yourself up for failure before you even begin. They create unnecessary pressure and almost guarantee frustration. But realistic goals give you something possible to reach for, step by step. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English in 1 month, you could say, I want to learn 10 new words this week and use them in conversation. That's realistic. That's doable. And each small goal you achieve builds confidence for the next one. Unrealistic goals are like setting yourself up for disappointment. If you promise, I'll study English for 5 hours every day, but only manage 30 minutes, you'll feel like a failure even though 30 minutes is still progress. A realistic goal would be, I'll study 30 minutes each day. Then anything extra becomes a bonus. When you set goals that fit your life and energy, you give yourself more chances to succeed. Success builds confidence, and confidence reduces stress. Mindset doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. Positive thinking is not about closing your eyes to reality. It's about choosing a healthier way to respond to reality. For example, if you fail a test, perfectionism says, I'm stupid. I'll never succeed. Progress thinking says, I didn't do well this time, but I can change my method and try again. One mindset closes doors, the other opens them. Taking control also means knowing when to rest. We live in a culture that glorifies constant action, working late, studying nonstop, always pushing. But rest is not laziness. Rest is part of progress. Just as muscles grow stronger when they recover, our minds also need breaks to process and heal. Giving yourself permission to pause is not weakness, it is wisdom. So ask yourself, what is my mindset right now? Do I demand perfection from myself in every situation? Do I see mistakes as proof of failure or as proof that I'm learning? Am I setting goals I can realistically reach or goals that guarantee stress? Most importantly, am I choosing progress, step by step, over the impossible dream of perfection? You cannot always control what happens to you, but you can control how you look at it. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change. That is the power of mindset. Practical tools and everyday habits. When we talk about frustration, stress, and depression, it's easy to imagine that solutions must be big or complicated. But often, the smallest habits bring the biggest change. These habits are like simple tools you can carry in your pocket. You can't remove every problem from life, but with the right tools, you can respond in healthier ways. The good news? These tools are available to everyone, no matter your age, location, or background. 1. Breathing. One of the most powerful tools is something we already do every day, breathing. It may sound too simple, but learning to control your breath can calm both body and mind in just moments. When we're stressed, our breathing becomes fast and shallow, tricking the body into thinking we're in danger. That only adds more stress. But by slowing down, taking deep breaths, focusing on the air moving in and out, we send a signal to the brain. It's okay. I'm safe. A simple technique. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4. This reduces tension quickly. You can do it anywhere, at work, in school, or even in line at the supermarket. 2. Journaling. Another helpful tool is journaling. Writing down your thoughts might sound old-fashioned, but it can make a big difference. When life feels overwhelming, the mind can feel like a messy room. Journaling is like cleaning that room. Putting your thoughts on paper gives them order. You may discover that something you thought was huge is actually small once written down. Or you may see patterns, like feeling stressed at the same time each day. Some people keep a gratitude journal, writing 3 things they're grateful for each evening. This simple practice shifts attention away from what's missing toward what's present and positive. This simple habit trains the brain to focus on the positive, even during difficult times. Exercise is another tool that is often underestimated. Many people think exercise is only about losing weight or building muscle, but in reality, it is one of the strongest natural medicines for the mind. When we move our body, whether running, dancing, swimming, or just walking, our brain releases chemicals that lift our mood and reduce stress. Think of exercise as pressing a reset button. You don't need a gym or expensive equipment. Even a 20-minute walk outside can clear your head and bring fresh energy. Healthy conversations are also essential. When we feel stressed or low, the temptation is to hide and stay silent. But talking to a trusted friend, family member, or mentor can be healing. Words are like bridges that connect us to others. Sharing how we feel reminds us that we are not alone. Sometimes just saying our worries out loud makes them lighter. Sometimes another person's perspective shows us solutions we couldn't see on our own. Routines play a powerful role in emotional balance. Life is full of uncertainty, and routines give us stability. Something as simple as waking up at the same time, drinking a glass of water in the morning, or reading a few pages before bed can anchor your day. These small steps build structure, and structure makes it easier to handle challenges. Imagine routines as invisible walls that protect your energy. Without them, frustration and stress can enter more easily. With them, you create a safe space to recharge. Different cultures also remind us of healthy practices. In many Asian traditions, meditation is a daily habit, sitting quietly, focusing on the breath, and letting thoughts come and go without judgment. This reduces stress and sharpens focus. In many European cities, walking in nature is common. Parks, forests, and rivers offer a simple reminder that life is bigger than our problems. These cultural examples show there is no single right tool. The best tool is the one that fits your life and makes you feel better. The key is to start small. You don't need to do everything at once. Pick one tool. Maybe breathing, journaling, walking, and practice it regularly. Over time, these small steps add up. Think of it like learning English. One new word each day may not seem like much, but after a year you know hundreds. In the same way, one small habit each day builds emotional strength that protects you in difficult times. So ask yourself, which tool speaks to me the most? Could I take 5 minutes today just to breathe deeply? Could I write 1 page in a journal each evening? Could I go for a short walk after dinner? Could I call a friend and share how I feel? These steps may look simple, but practiced consistently, they hold the power to create lasting change, encouragement, and self-reflection. Now that we have talked about frustration, stress, depression, and some simple tools to handle them, I want to take a moment to speak directly to you, the listener. This is a moment to pause and think about your own life. Change does not come just from listening to advice. Real change comes when we ask ourselves honest questions and take small, real actions. Let me ask you this. What is one small habit you can start today? Not tomorrow, not next week, not when life becomes easier, but today. It does not have to be something big or dramatic. In fact, small habits often have the strongest effect because they are realistic and can be done every day. Maybe you can take a 10-minute walk outside this afternoon. Maybe you can turn off your phone 30 minutes before bed. Maybe you can write down one thought or feeling in a journal before you sleep. Or maybe it is as simple as taking 3 deep breaths before replying to a stressful email. These small actions may seem minor, but inside your mind and heart, they send a powerful message. I am taking care of myself. I am in control of my actions. Here's another question to reflect on. What small action could reduce your stress right now? Take a moment to think about your current day or week. Where do you feel the most pressure? Is it at work, in your studies, or at home with family responsibilities? Picture one situation that usually makes you feel tense. Now ask yourself, what is one tiny thing I could do differently in that moment? It could be as simple as breathing more slowly and deeply, changing the way you speak to yourself, taking a short break to clear your mind. We often think reducing stress means changing the whole situation, but sometimes it is enough to change how we respond to it. Small adjustments in the way we react can make a big difference over time. As you reflect, notice your emotions without judgment. Too often, we label feelings as good or bad. We feel frustrated and think, something is wrong with me. I shouldn't feel this. We feel stressed and think, I'm weak. I can't handle this. We feel sadness and think, I am failing at life. But emotions are not enemies. They are signals like traffic lights on the road. A red light does not mean your car is broken. It simply tells you to pause, stop, and pay attention. In the same way, when you feel frustration, stress, or sadness, it is not a sign that you are broken. It is a signal that something in your life needs care and attention. Consistency is very important. Taking care of your emotions is not a one-time activity. It is like brushing your teeth. You do not brush once and expect your teeth to stay healthy forever. You do it every day. Small, regular actions create long-lasting results. The same is true for your emotional well-being. Practices like breathing exercises, journaling, moving your body, or talking to someone you trust only work if you do them regularly. Over time, these small habits build strength, help you feel calmer, and make it easier to face life's challenges. So today, ask yourself, what small step can I take right now to care for myself? One action may not solve everything, but over time, it will create lasting change. And that is the true power of small, consistent steps. Consistency, patience, and small steps. It is consistency, not one big dramatic effort, that builds real strength. And patience is just as important. We live in a world that values speed. We want quick results, fast fixes, instant success. But emotional growth does not work that way. Think about learning English. You do not become fluent overnight. You learn one word, then another. You practice one conversation, then another. Slowly, day by day, your skills grow. The same is true for handling frustration, stress, and depression. Progress is often slow and sometimes invisible, but with patience and steady effort, it will come. So remember this. Never underestimate the power of small, consistent steps. Even if it feels like you are moving slowly, slow progress is still progress. Be gentle with yourself. Notice your emotions without harsh judgment. Celebrate small victories, like the time you paused to breathe instead of snapping at someone, or the evening you wrote down your feelings instead of keeping them bottled up. These victories matter. Right now, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what is one small action I can take today to bring myself a little more peace? If that feels too big, make it even smaller. What can I do in the next 10 minutes to feel calmer, lighter, or more supported? This is how real change begins, not with giant leaps, but with one mindful step at a time. As we reach the end of this episode of Super English Talks, Let's reflect on everything we have explored today. We talked about frustration, stress, and depression, and it is important to remember that each of these experiences is different. Frustration happens when things do not go as we expect. It is sharp, sudden, and often immediate. Stress occurs when we carry too many responsibilities or pressures at once. Life feels heavy, like too many things are pulling us in different directions. Depression goes deeper. It affects our energy, our interests, and the way we see ourselves and the world. It lingers, making even small tasks feel overwhelming. Understanding these differences is the first step toward managing your emotions. You cannot take control of something you do not recognize. The most important message to carry with you is this: your emotions do not have to control you. Life will always bring challenges, unexpected obstacles, and moments that test your patience. You will feel frustrated, stressed, or even sad, but you are not powerless. By becoming aware of your feelings, reflecting on them, and using simple tools like deep breathing, journaling, exercise, and small everyday habits, you can respond in healthier ways. You can choose how to act, how to think, and how to care for yourself even when life feels difficult. This is not about ignoring your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It is about listening to yourself, understanding what your feelings are telling you, and making conscious choices that support your well-being. Always remember, you are capable of change. No matter where you are today, no matter how heavy your mind or heart may feel, change is possible. It may not happen instantly, but it will happen through small, consistent actions over time. Just like learning English, every small step adds up. Each time you pause to breathe instead of reacting, each time you write down your thoughts, each short walk you take, or each time you reach out to a friend, you are building strength, resilience, and self-awareness. Change is not a sudden event. It is a journey, one small, mindful step at a time. And every step matters. These small steps matter, even if progress feels slow at first. Every little action you take adds up over time, helping you feel stronger and more in control of your mind and emotions. So, here's a gentle call to action for you. Take a moment and think about your own habits. What is one small thing you could do today to take better care of yourself? Maybe it is 5 minutes of deep breathing, a short walk outside, or writing one sentence in a journal. It doesn't have to be big or perfect. What matters is that you start. You can also share this episode with a friend or family member who might benefit from these ideas. Talking about feelings and sharing experiences can give comfort, support, and new ways to think about challenges. Most importantly, come back for the next episode of Super English Talks, where we will continue exploring ways to grow, reflect, and improve together. Remember, every small step counts. You are not alone on this journey. You have the power to take control, make changes, and create a healthier relationship with your emotions. Be patient with yourself. Stay consistent. Believe in your ability to grow. Life will bring challenges, but with awareness, action, and care, you can navigate them with strength and confidence. Until next time, take care of your mind, your heart, and your words. Thank you for spending this time with me on Super English Talks, a space where language meets life, reflection meets action, and your journey toward clarity and connection is always welcome. Take care of yourself. And until next time, keep growing with kindness, curiosity, and courage.